benefits of watching a little bit ahead is that you get to go ahead and watch the next episode. Hey, it's Romania Black, and that seems quite obvious, but I have been biting at the bit to get into these later episodes of Atelier, and because I had recorded a little bit ahead, now I'm like, well, I'm checking the comments, I might as well go ahead and watch the next episode. And I feel like as we are sadly drawing close to the catch-up stage of season 1, where we're going to be caught up, waiting on season 2, getting into the Witch Atelier kitchen episodes, I feel like it's very important to go ahead and watch a little bit ahead so that I can avoid spoilers, because it's very important to me. I've been doing my work, my due diligence to stay away from spoilers. I've been doing a good job, so, you know, you gotta reap the benefits of it. So, I've got some comments from you all for episode 7 and a few from Patreon for episode 8, and then I have some talk about the dub, so bear with me. As per usual, we got a little bit to talk about in the intro, but I'm going to timestamp it if you want to skip on past what everybody's had to say about this episode. But there are some really good comments that I feel are worth talking about before we dive into this episode. So, Sparata6232 for episode 7 said that the image of an adult man on his knees begging a child to save his son is a really tragic sight, especially knowing how easily he could access the power needed if only he'd known of the possibility. That's the whole thing. Like, since episode 1, I've been like, yeah, witching world and witching society is super exclusive, super privileged, super giving privileged upper class vibes. And it's really sad because it's kind of like things we can relate to in our own world where there should be access. There is clearly these like resources available, but you can't access them unless you have the power and the knowledge of how to access that power. So for example, there is, like weight loss medication that people could access if, my best friend has been trying to access like some weight loss medication because they have a physical disability for mobility purposes. Having that weight loss and that medication to help would be very beneficial. Her insurance won't pay for it because she doesn't meet a specific criteria of like, she's not diabetic basically. But I'm like, other people get access to it through their connections. So it's kind of very similar to the witching world in that sense. And then to go along with it, Space Fox 4394, they had this to say about the non-witches. The thing that gets me is how the non-witches see the witches. Like, yes, it is a stressful situation in episode 7, but those people, especially Dagda, look at Agott, a kid the same age as the one they're desperate to save, and said, you save him and make it quick. Thanks. They don't see a kid, they see a witch. But it should be clear that the apprentices are still very young and maybe not experienced enough to help, yet they don't seem to see it or care it. They just see the power. It's like asking the child of a doctor to cure you just because the parents can. They would know maybe more than the average person, but still wouldn't be qualified to actually help. I know it's by design from the pointed caps, but the lie that magic is innate creates a separation that is a shackle to the witches and not just power they have over normal people. It's nuanced. Here's the thing. I don't feel bad for the witches necessarily in that regard because they've created this society for themselves. I feel bad for the children because they don't understand. Richa in the last episode started to kind of get into that idea of being told what to do, and we talked about that in the discussion. Go watch my discussion last week to see that. But I don't feel bad for the adults in the witch society because you've actively chosen to have your society be like this. But I feel bad for the kids, especially the apprentices, which is why, as we learned last week, they don't normally go out in public and get in those situations so that they don't have that happen. But it's kind of like, you designed this society, you made these choices, now you got to kind of deal with the consequences, but it seems like the system knows that if you had a situation like that with Agott in episode 7, that's not right. So they try to course correct and put these barriers in place so that those types of situations won't happen. But we definitely have seen what happens if they do. Space Fox also said, it makes me wonder if Agott's earlier comments about Coco being an outsider and not wanting her in in her world could be related to the way non-witches seem to treat witches, like a commodity or objects to be used in time of need. Maybe she didn't want to be treated like that and assumed that's what Coco was going to be like because all the outsiders are like those people. I don't believe that all outsiders are like those people. I don't usually like to deal in absolutes. That's like a logical fallacy since I studied rhetoric. That's like you don't ever deal with absolutes because someone will come along to be the outlier in that. But again, I do think that if you don't want the outsiders to treat you like objects, don't make the system that way. If you don't want people to complain about it, don't make it that way. But I'm a little biased on that. I'm very anti-authority, and the Witching Society gives lots of authoritative vibes, and I'm just like, I kind of want to be like, eat the rich. I probably would be a brimmed cap. I would be a brimmed cap 1000%. Like, no, I would not be in the Witch Society. I would be a brimmed cap. Plus, their hats are beautiful. I mean, come on now. Season 2, I'm just going to have to make my own hat and be a brimmed cap like the whole time. That's just going to have to happen. Cool Ice Princess 2641 for episode 7 says, in Japanese, Qifrey calls him Oro, which is pronunciation of Orugio or Orugio. It's officially translated to Ollie. Oru is cute. I like Oru as well. Did you notice Ollie immediately volunteered to go ahead in pouring rain to set up the window way, so said combatant didn't have to endure the rain longer than he has to? Oh, I actually did not notice that, but Orugio's whipped. He is whipped beyond all. He is whipped more than any cream possible. He is whipped more than any butter. He is whipped beyond comparison. Devo would be impressed by how whipped he is for Qifrey, and we love to see it. Geron is Leror. Hope I said that right. While most people agree with you that Orugio is the dad, I've always read Orugio as the tsundere mom and Qifrey as the twink dad. I've met a few gay couples that have kids that have that exact dynamic. And despite my partner not being a twink, he is very twink brand. And if we have kids, unfortunately, I've been told I'm a tsundere, so that family dynamic would kick in very quickly. Well, I mean, I'm good. Good for you. That's awesome about you and your partner. After you said that, I'm going to be honest with you all. Like I said, I've been avoiding spoilers like the plague. I've been doing very well. But there was one post like a couple weeks ago around the time I watched episode 6 that came out, and the person who had posted this, there were no tags. There were no tags, and I was like, ugh! But it was, it was an Omegaverse fan art of Orugio and Qifrey, and Orugio was having the child, and I was like, oh. And suddenly I saw the vision. And so when I read this comment from Geronis, I was like, oh no, the vision is alive. Like, yes, if I imagine Orugio and Qifrey like switch their verse, they just, whatever they're feeling like it. But if you told me that Qifrey is mainly like a top, I'd be like, oh, okay. I kind of get, if you've watched Drag Race, like Lydia Butthole Collins, which amazing drag queen name, and Corey King, I kind of get those vibes with Orugio and Qifrey and Lydia kind of give me the same vibes. So yeah, sure, absolutely. Nice, we'll go with that. Cool. I always get your name wrong, and you've been following my channel for a while. Herbatazirim. 4141 for episode 7 says, a small note about Orugio's accent in the dub. It's Yorkshire. Northern English, thanks Sean Bean. Isn't that also the 9th Doctor in Doctor Who? Isn't he from Northern Britain too? Isn't he Northern? A lovely thing about dubbing that the direction for this show did is not only is there a divide between the outsiders having American accents and the witches having various European but mostly British Isle accents, I did not notice that in the dub. And then I watched episode 9 today and was like, it's true. It's true. I was like, that's such a cool direction note. I didn't realize that until you had commented that. The accents within the Witch Society refer to where the characters are from, like how all the witches from Calne sound vaguely Irish. After every episode, I've started reading the corresponding manga chapters, and in the manga, Orugio's lines are written distinctively different from the other characters, possibly indicating an accent. I've read that it's because in the original Japanese, he's written to sound northern. I love how that's translated in the English dub. Very cool. I did not notice it, and then after I read Herba's comment, I was like, oh. And so watching episode 9, when Tartah's friends are playing with him, they have an American accent. I was like, that's crazy. Very cool. I like the directing decision on that. Speaking of Orugio, Salieri for episode 8 says, please check Olrugio's VA. His voice is so good. Now, I had been avoiding doing this because I had the theory that Olrugio and the Masked Witch had the same voice actor or were the same person. And now I'm like, the Masked Witch doesn't have facial hair, so it can't be Olrugio. That was the ultimate debunking. So I looked up Olrugio's Japanese voice actor. They're one of the voice actors I can never recognize on my own, even though I've seen a million things with them in it. It is Yuichi Nakamura, who's Gojo. Oddly enough, I would expect Gojo's voice actor to play Qifrey, so it's a good surprise. Olrugio's not exactly the character I would expect for his actor to play. I didn't realize he plays a character in To Be Hero X that I'm watching the Chinese dub for that series, so I didn't realize he was that. And also, he's been Hawks in My Hero Academia. There you go, amongst many, many, many other roles. But yeah, cool. I was like, that's such a wild thing, right? And then finally, as far as comments go, Rose Jennison says, that does make me think of something that's been on my mind for a while. How deep does memory erasure magic go? They talked about this a little bit in their comment, and I want to touch base on this because, again, the cliffhanger of last episode was that Tartah was going to ask Qifrey a question. I'm like, my dude, if you start asking him about your grandpa, I fear what's going to happen. But I did like the idea. In my mind, I think that you have your casting spell, right? And the length of the arrows show how far the spell reaches. So in my mind, if you want the spell to just make people forget, like, within the last hour or so, you'd make the lines pretty short. But maybe if, like, the spell that the Knights of Morales used seemed like it was in, like, a little pattern. So maybe that determines the length that it's used. That's a good question. Maybe we'll find more out about the less we find out about the memory erasure, the better, because that means the less it's likely to be featured. So, but I'm sure we're going to find out more about it as we go, unfortunately. And then as far as the dub, in Coco's dream, I was going back and watching the dub right before getting on to talk to you all about this episode. And in Coco's dream, it almost looked like there is this black thorny tree taking shape behind her that, like, could be seen from the shadows. It just kind of seemed like that. I don't know what it is exactly about that. Going back to the witches of healing craft, the righteous witches of healing craft, the idea of the three wise ones tracking down these doctor witches and erasing their memories is pretty haunting and terrifying. And it kind of hints at the lengths that people will go to achieve their ambitions and agendas. And that extends from the three wise ones to the brimmed caps to Qifrey. It kind of just ties in, like, how far are you willing to go to keep, doing what you're doing? And then when Qifrey has the ink bottle, he says that it's the little chip inside the ink bottle was the tiniest of hints leading away to the greatest of discoveries. To him, finding the brimmed cap's whereabouts is the biggest thing you could discover, because it'd be like finding the hornet's nest and just, like, spraying them out of existence, which is pretty terrifying. But also, you would think, after he talked about, like, the delicacy of, like, the 2-bottle spell, I almost wonder if Qifrey not only wants to find the brimmed caps to get vengeance, to get what they took from him, whatever, but also because the brimmed caps clearly have knowledge that they've gathered of spells that were erased from time since the day of the pact. So again, it would be like a treasure trove, finding all of these spells that were forbidden. It'd be like finding a big stash of banned books. I mean, lots of stuff to go on with that. The water in the spell that was used against Qifrey by the Masked Witch, I didn't notice this during the reaction and discussion, but I wonder if it's possibly was taken from the sea, because the Masked Witch was next to a big ocean, so maybe they used the sea in the moment to use in the spell. Could be. And then, just clarifying, Qifrey recognized the Masked Witch only from their previous encounter, seemingly, because in the dub he goes, "You're the one with the eye." So I took it as he recognized the Masked Witch from that encounter, seeing them, or, briefly seeing them perhaps. But I don't know if he saw them. I don't know if Qifrey saw them like Coco saw them. So they have some kind of history. They've seen each other before. At least the Masked Witch has seen Qifrey because he knows him by name. But Qifrey knows him as the one with the eye. So, And then finally, the way that Qifrey teases Brush Buddy in the English dub is so cute. The way he's just been like, puff, puff. It's so cute and adorable. And I loved every second of it. The English dub is so good. It's one of my favorite dubs that's come out recently. It's just very quality, and I appreciate that. So I'm sorry this has taken almost 15 minutes, but there was a lot to talk about. And now we're getting into episode 10, and we only have 3 episodes left of this season. And I don't like that at all. But at least we have, you know, cooking that we can do and more stuff with these witches that we can do in the meantime. So anyway, we're not going to waste any more time in that sense. We are going to get started with this next episode. All right, let's get ready. So we're going to start episode 10 of Witch Hat Atelier. And we are going to get that started here in 3, 2, 1. And I'll see you all on the other side. Oh my! I love it! 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 Oh my god! Look! 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 If you want to ship Coco and Agott, I'm here for you. I'm here for the slow burn, angst-ridden, tsundere and sweet angel bean ship that is Agott and Coco. But there is something about Tartah and Coco that just warms the cockles of my heart. I'm like, oh my god, it's so adorably romantic, and it's everything to me. And so yes, just give us this I did not walk into Witch Hat Atelier expecting all of the ships to come into the harbor at once, but it really has. So yeah, wow, okay. Well, let's talk about this, shall we? Because we've got some really good stuff going on in this episode. And I feel like it kind of ties back to stuff going on. It kind of is bringing home a lot of theories and a lot of themes that have been kind of brewing under the surface for the entire season. And I really like the fact that Tartah, who is a kid, gets to kind of represent, because I love the fact that the apprentices, all the girls and Coco and Tartah, they're children. So the flaws in the system, as we noted in the introduction of this episode, where people were like asking a grown man asking a child to do this magic to save their other child, is kind of messed up. Yeah. And I like the fact that we're using kids to highlight how messed up this is, because you need that kind of factor of innocence to sort of tie it all together. But I petition to have the entire series to have the Tartah cut of the whole series, to see it all in silver wash. What's interesting is, and we're going to pull this up here so that you all can see alongside me here. We're just going to go through the episode in chronological order here in 3, 2, 1. What's interesting is that it's not what I anticipated silver wash being, which was like a straight up black and white, like very high contrast, super bright vision. It's really just in a grayscale sort of situation. But there's like, if you notice here, there's like aspects of purple and hues of green and a little bit of like muted tones like pink, like it's inversed so that Coco, her green hair, looks pink there. Like, it's very interesting. And it's so, I love Tartah as a character and seeing things from his point of view. It's so refreshing, and it's just so wonderful to watch. So anyway, Tartah is convinced that Qifrey knows something about the light. And by the end of this episode, they've kind of just brushed it off. Now, do I think Tartah has forgotten entirely about all of this? No. Do I think he's going to kind of put it aside for now? Yes. Do I think that the whole thing about the flash of light and Qifrey's shadiness is going to come up at a very inconvenient time later on in the series? Yes. But it's right now, it's out of sight, out of mind. We're just not going to worry about it. I'm glad that Coco was sort of the buffer in this episode, and it became very clear immediately that Qifrey doesn't want to talk about this. Qifrey's like, I don't want to have to erase your memories too. Probably the most disturbing part about all of this, and it's something I thought about as soon as it happened, whenever Noah comes back on the boat and like gives Qifrey the pat, he's like, oh, good on you, son. Qifrey's just like, oh yeah, you're exactly right. Like it was nothing. Like the fact that he erased this man's memories was nothing, which to us, the audience, should be a clue that Qifrey's probably been erasing people's memories, this wasn't the first time it happened. Qifrey's been erasing people's memories in the past, because otherwise he would be like Coco and would be guilt-tripped by it. He'd be guilt-ridden by it and be like, oh my gosh, I had to erase Nolnoa's memories and this is going to weigh kind of heavy on my heart. Now he don't care. So I'm like, ooh. I was like, Qifrey has erased someone's memories before. Nolnoa was not the first. He probably won't be the last. And that's a problem. But we're gonna let Qifrey did enough suffering this episode, you know? So yeah, at first, Tartah's like, I have a question I want to ask you. And of course they do the big misdirect where Qifrey, for a second, Qifrey looks super icy glary. I liked the idea, and I want to try to find my marker on here. I liked the idea that Tartah said Qifrey was associated with ice because ice is just frozen water, and any chance Qifrey can keep that water away from him. Here's the thing. If you think about it, you have Qifrey up here, and Qifrey has to be associated with ice. We have to keep it frozen, because if it's not frozen, it's going to get all over him, and we can't be having that. So it's sort of lending this idea that the things Qifrey does, it's giving Jaime Lannister vibes, in a sense. If you've ever watched episode 1 of Game of Thrones, when he says the phrase, the things I do for love. Yeah. So, the things I do for love. That's the phrase I'm going to associate with Qifrey, the things I do for love. The fact that he can just so nonchalantly do it and then not turn a blind eye. He's done this before and he'll do it again. And he's like, I'm doing it because I have to. And I'm like, it's a lot. I'm going to be very curious how these next 2 episodes are going to go, because of course we have to set up the final trial of the season, and we'll talk about that at the end of the episode. We're going through this chronologically so that we don't get off track. But yeah, I'm with Tartah. I don't trust Qifrey. I don't trust Qifrey at all. And the crazy thing is that I don't think Qifrey's a bad person. That's kind of what's so wild about his character and so intriguing, is I don't think Qifrey's a bad person. I think Qifrey has a lot of very good thoughts about the things about the world, and I agree with him on a lot of things, but the methods to his madness, the ways he goes about doing them, and the non-apologetic kind of just fragrant way he goes about and is like, this is how it's going to be. I'm like, oh, sir, we need to wait a minute. I have issue with some of his methods, but I don't think Qifrey's a bad person. I don't entirely disagree with him. I just love Tartah. Tartah is an amazing audience surrogate, because Tartah is like us watching the show. He knows about the world of magic. He knows all the ins and outs, but he's not able to participate in it. He's kind of like us. He can't participate in the world, well, until later on in this episode, but he's trying to understand this world that he's a part of but can't take part in. And I just absolutely adore him. So yeah, he's like, what do you want to know, Tartah? And Tartah's like, I just look at his freaking owl face. Of course, Tartah's not going to bring it up now, because he's like, you've killed the mood. You've killed the vibe. You're freaking hot and cold. That face! That is my face anytime Qifrey does anything shady. That is my face. Internally, that is how I feel. Anytime the whole end of episode 8 was that face of what Qifrey was doing. I was like, stop it, sir. You need to be contained. And then he's like, whenever he goes, I can't tell him, it's not that kind of question. The sparkles make it especially awkward. I like that Tartah's like, I'm not into guys. I figured that out. Because Ulrugio would have been swayed instantly. Ulrugio would have been like, oh yeah, what are you thinking about that, Qifrey? And just done that. I was like, yeah, no, Tartah's like, no, I'm not persuaded. I'm just kind of thrown off by your sparkles, sir. This freaking owl man. So then the most snatched marm in hospital history comes out. And it was a cool bit of storytelling and a nice little narrative twist that she was there the whole time. It makes sense. She's older. She probably got osteoporosis. She ain't gonna run down to that bar. She's like, I'm gonna stay here and keep tabs on these young whippersnappers trying to mess with our medicines. So Good on her. I liked that she wasn't overly stern. She was just like, we can't be having you messing with medicines. What if somebody gets hurt? So yeah, we find out Coco has a cold. The way that her hair lays, no human in history has hair that lays that perfect upon a pillow. Not possible. Anime magic, not possible. But so she has a cold. Good to know it's not like, something terrible like the flu or something like that. I mean, a cold's bad enough for a kid, but it's not something that's like horribly contagious or like debilitating, right? And then the marm, she kind of puts Qifrey in his place. She's like, she needs to sleep. Honestly, what kind of training do you witches put yourselves through? And you can very much see when she says that, like, that face by Qifrey, Qifrey feels a lot of guilt in this moment because Qifrey has been busy doing his own things, his own research, trying to find out about the brimmed caps, and he's not been paying as much attention to Coco and what the girls are doing as he probably should have been. At least in his mind, that's what he's thinking. So Qifrey kind of feels bad. He's like, yeah, I dropped the ball and wasn't paying attention to my apprentice, and now this has happened, and I've kind of been selfish in doing my own thing, and I feel bad about it now. And she's like, what kind of training do you put yourselves through? And then she says this line, she's just a child. The adults in her life need to be more attentive. Yeah, so I talked about this in the intro, but we've got to set up this idea that with the Witch Society, we talked about it last week, but this episode kind of compounds onto it a little bit more, that they put in place all of these tests to keep young would-be witches, it sounds like a band, the would-be witches at bay from being taken advantage of, and I'm going to use take advantage of in quotation marks, so we're going to talk about that, by the public, or being sought out by the public, being accessed by the public, being looked for their power by the public. The tests are designed to make sure that you are old enough and willing to do that. Now, is there a chance that there's a child prodigy witch that excels through all 4 tests when they're at a young age? Of course. I'm sure there have been. I'm sure in this story that we'll meet a witch that like passed all 4 tests by the age of 12 or something, and she'll be like a comparison to Coco or something like that. I'm sure that we'll meet a witch like that. Or maybe a brimmed cap that was like that, But the point is the majority of witches are going to be young adults or adults by the time they pass all 4 tests. And they'll definitely likely be adults by the time they take on apprentices. So I feel like that is part of the Witch Society by design, so that the scenarios where Agott is confronted by the parent that happens in episode 7 doesn't happen in, the usual day-to-day with these witches. But yeah, and Qifrey, takes her words to heart. He was like, anytime, there were so many times in this episode you couldn't see Qifrey's eyes. They were kept out of view because, the anime doesn't want us to fully see his emotions. But yeah, he's like, damn it, I've kind of shirked my duties. I haven't been doing what I'm supposed to be doing. And Tartah doesn't exactly know what's going on. He's just taking it all in like we are. I did think this spell was interesting. So if you look, there's the water symbol, and then there's like these, the way that the arrows are, I guess it is like making a continuous loop with the water. I guess it's supposed to like, damn, getting us up close and personal with Qifrey's lips. Animation team, you know what you're doing. He's really good at blowing. I will say that. So he makes this beautiful heart infinity looking, basically a humidifier for the room. Makes a humidifier for the room. Super cool. I love the fact that it's mainly to keep the temperature and stuff in like a decent place for Coco so that she doesn't get like overheated more than she already is. God, she looks really pretty there. So yeah, hope this eases her fever. And then that's when Tartah asks why would she work herself so hard that she would collapse. And I like how Qifrey's hands make the heart there. And I feel in this moment, Qifrey kind of understands where Coco has been coming from. There are times where our bodies, minds, and best efforts fail us. Like he's projecting there quite a bit, saying Coco's been trying to do these things and failing. I've been trying to do these things and failing. We're both kind of kindred spirits in this moment, but I'm an adult with a better immune system. I can handle no sleep. Coco cannot. Coco didn't know anything about witches until recently. Even if she acts cheerful, she may have been racked with fear deep down. And that's interesting to note. So Qifrey believes that Coco, because of her inexperience and newness, was experiencing fear about the witch society. And he's not wrong necessarily, but what we are kind of leaving out with Coco is the idea that she feels guilty for putting people in danger because of her ambitions. Like Qifrey, he's heard from her that she wanted to do magic from a young age. He's heard from her that she wanted to do magic from a young age, but I don't think Qifrey understands the full extent of how deep that runs. And he doesn't understand, like, Coco feels that all of her actions based on what Orugio has said, what Agott has said, what's been told of her by the Knights Moralis. Like, she feels everything she's been doing is putting people in danger, and it's more out of her guilt and, you know, fear that she's going to hurt somebody than fear of the witching society itself. So there is a little bit of a difference there. Now, somebody pointed this out in the comments, but Tartah drops the hat and said, I didn't realize the outsider everyone's been talking about. Somebody said that about Easties in the comments, that Easties wouldn't have known it was Coco. And I was like, it's going to be interesting to see, like, what is the chain of communication and who knows what and who doesn't know what. Because back in episode 3, with the Dada range, back in episode 3, the way that Altair talked, it made it seem like everybody knew that Coco was Qifrey's apprentice and that Qifrey was harboring this forbidden spell using outsider and making her an apprentice. Like, Altair made it sound like all the witches in the Great Hall knew about it and that all the locals knew about it too, that it was common knowledge. But then Easties, I had assumed that Easties knew that Qifrey had an apprentice like this, but didn't know which of the girls it was. He, like, picks up Richa and goes, are you the outsider? And it's like, no. And he picks up, Agott and goes, are you the outsider? Which I doubt he would do that with Agott because Agott's got family ties. But now Easties knows that Coco, the green-haired one, is her. And so maybe Tartah clearly knows about the rumor about the outsider, but didn't realize that it was exactly Coco. And now he knows. But he's, obviously had his opinions of her kind of, drawn based on his interaction. So he says this line here, maybe she's, I wondered what he meant there. Like, I wondered if, like, maybe she's, someone that knows about the Flash as well, or maybe she's tied to it, or I wish we could have heard the rest of that sentence. Because I don't think we're going to get any more, reveal of what he was about to say until way later down the road, because he's now focused on another agenda and we're going to get to it too. But I hate when characters' conversations are cut off and they don't get to finish a thought. I hate that. So yeah, Qifrey's like, do you have a question for me? But can we talk about it another day? That look, this isn't the best time. Qifrey's like, look, I know you want to talk to me about something, but I've got some bigger fish to fry and I ain't got time to erase your memories today. Qifrey, you're so shady. So shady. I don't know. And Tartah's like, nope, I'm great. Tartah's a smart kid. Tartah knows that asking Qifrey right now is not the best idea. And he's like, don't worry about it. We will just water under the bridge. Let's not think about it. Tartah definitely strikes me as, like, Qifrey's a father figure to Coco, and Tartah strikes me as, like, the boyfriend that's, like, meeting the parents, and Qifrey's like, are we going to talk about this now? And he's like, nope, never mind. Don't worry about it. Tartah, our boy. So he runs off and leaves the hat. I feel like he was so struck in the moment, realizing that Coco was the outsider that's now a witch's apprentice, that he dropped the hat and forgot about it. I'm surprised that it took him so long to go back and get it. I'm surprised that he didn't immediately retrace his steps and remember that he left it in the hospital, because he's a smart kid. I felt like that might have been a little bit of a plot contrivance. But then again, he's a kid. He's not an adult. He's a kid. And so we can't hold that against him too much. But yeah. So he goes back to the ferry. Yeah, he looks back up there at the tower. So she's in like that tall tower, very Rapunzel-esque. For a second there, his gaze was like ice. Maybe it was my imagination. No, Tartah, you have very good intuition. It is not your imagination. Qifrey most certainly is giving off those vibes. And if your gut's telling you something's off, it very likely is. So this was interesting. He gets to the ferry, and this episode's called A Promise in Silver. So we did not get an OP this week, which I'm not mad at. If ever there was a week to skip the OP, this would be it. You can't pass unless you can prove you are a witch. I would think that the ink and stuff would be, but here's the thing. He can't use the ink as proof because none of the outsiders know that they use ink to cast the spells. Isn't that crazy? So, to the outsiders, you have to have a hat. The pointed hat shows that you are a witch or tied to a witch as an apprentice, which is interesting. There's a part of me that like wants to get into like full fanfic mode and say like the brimmed caps try to recruit Tartah and like all this stuff. The brimmed caps fascinate me beyond all belief. They're so stylish. They're so cool. I want to know more. I want to know more about the brimmed caps. So yeah, that's interesting that you have to have the hat no matter what to even be considered in association with the witches. And I assume that the Witch Society let Tartah... There's a whole other realm to this that I don't think we've even discussed. So in this, the witches that become disabled, by witch standard, by the way, what do they do? Because, like, Tartah, for example, I'm like, so basically, because Tartah can do really good at making the wands, they were like, oh, well, he's good at doing this task that we need done, so he can stick around and do that. He can't do anything else or become a witch, but he can make the wands. That's important. We need that tool. We need those resources. If he hadn't have been good at making the wands, would they have just erased his memory and sent him packing? Could have. They could have. That's crazy. That's wild. So, I have lots to say about the Witch Society. I have lots to say every week, but we're going to get to it here in a little bit. So he goes back. He's like, I can't get back without my hat. I love that shot of, like, the tower and everything, which the tower... I was very curious. What is at the top of that tower? Like, what is at the top of that? Because it's not where the sketching and stuff takes place, but they reference that tower quite a bit. I'm like, what happened up there? I can't go back without my hat. So anyway, we get these bottles with all the medicine that's put back in there. I find it fascinating that the bottles themselves, like with the medicine, there are no labels. So, outsiders cannot use. I mean, they do it because they don't want somebody just running up and grabbing the medicine and taking off. If they don't have the labels on it, they think it will deter people from taking any of the medicine because they're like, well, you can't identify what it is, so you're not going to try to use it or take it. But is that necessarily true? No, because Tartah, despite not having the labels, he still figures out a way to like dissect the medicine and figure out what is what. So this felt like a remnants or a lingering from the Healing Craft witch days where they didn't need to label necessarily because they could use their magic to figure it out. It feels like the remnants of that's still being utilized today. And what's so crazy is that is a good shot of Qifrey. He looks really adorable there. He looks like such a doting parent there. He's like, man, it's really nice who made this room nice and cool. And he's like, isn't magic amazing? And Qifrey always tries to point out the real magic that the outsiders use. Like when he first met Coco, he pointed out when she could like cut the fabric and stuff. He's like, well, what you're doing is real magic. Like, that's amazing. We're just borrowing spells and casting spells. You have a real ability. And here he tries to like say to the doctor, like, well, you guys are amazing too. Like, yeah, sure, this is like humidifying the room, but he's like, magic can't cure diseases, so this is the best I can do. Well, there is some magic that could cure diseases, but we're not allowed to use it. He says it still helps with the recovery, right? And then he says, I wish we could have this in our toolbox. And that shot where it goes to his face, I'm like, well, it was in your toolbox. You could have access to it. But the three wise ones made it to where you couldn't. So that's talking about this concept of power to a select group. The crazy part is the qualifications to be a witch. The qualifications to be a witch. Because the one marm tells Tartah, she's like, oh, do you want to be a doctor because you have interest in medicine and helping others? You have medicine in helping others and in, creating this medication. Do you want to be a doctor? Like, this seems like something that would be up your alley, that you have fortitude and aptitude to want to do it. And Tartah's like, oh, no, I couldn't possibly. With the witching world, Qifrey told Coco, he's like, since you love magic and the concept of magic, then I think you'll be a good witch because you'll keep this a secret because you respect the entity of magic so much. You respect what it is and the craft. So you'll keep this a secret and you'll be able to be a witch. But is that all there is to it? I feel as if it's like, how do you select who's going to become a witch? Is because they have great writing skills, great casting skills, they have good eyesight? What other qualifications do they have? Like, what makes it work out? They don't really, what are the qualifications? Everything else the outsiders do involves the skills that they have. And so they kind of talk about that a little bit with Tartah, and we're going to expand upon it, but the witching world is so exclusive, and it's kind of like, well, who gets to select the group that's in power? How does one determine if you get to be an apprentice or not? Is it through nepotism? Is it through a standard? Like, how does that go? That, again, they really love animating Qifrey. That's a really good shot of him. He's like, I'm sure. So then we see this fire break out, and this guy, the bar to the north caught fire. We're trying to save the injured, but they're all drunk. It's not funny. It's not funny, and I don't really drink anymore, but I'm just imagining, I've been to bars before, and just the concept that trying to relocate and evacuate a bunch of drunk people is like herding cats. It is impossible. There was one vacation I went on with some friends, and I was sober because I had a headache, so I didn't want to drink anything. So I took some medicine, and I was like, I'll be the sober one. I'll get us back to our hotel. And by the end of the night, it was just like everybody was just everywhere. It was like that scene from Parks and Recreation where everybody's just drunk and going crazy, and I'm sitting there being like, we've got to go. Get over here. No, you stay over here. Don't you walk away. And trying to grab everybody and keep them all together. So I understand and relate to this man's plight quite a bit. He's like, they're all drunk. It's hard to move them. What are we going to do? And then he's like, are you a witch? Can you use water? And this is the thing. This is interesting. What's fascinating about Qifrey is that he is a bit selfish. Because this man comes in being like, there's a fire and there's people injured and we could really use some help. And oh my God, water. Are you a witch? Can you use water? That would really be helpful right now. And Qifrey's like, yeah, but what? He's he's a little bit selfish in how that power is used. And I'm not saying that is a bad thing necessarily. Don't get it twisted. I'm not saying that's necessarily a bad thing because, how many stories have you read where the main character gets this power and they want to help everybody with the power all at once. If you've read Heaven Official's Blessing, there's the main character of that series, and this isn't spoiling anything about the series, but the main character's like, I want to help everybody and save everyone. And spoiler alert, you can't do that easily, or maybe at all. So it is kind of refreshing to see Qifrey be like, I don't really, like, maybe it's not my place, I don't know, but it is also kind of selfish. Come and help us put out the fire. And this part here, I could understand why someone watching would be like, that man shouldn't be tugging on Qifrey. He shouldn't be grabbing him, pushing him, because it is very awkward. It's kind of uncomfortable. And I'm like the doctor there. It's like, But in the same vein, you've created a society where you want to be the ones with all the power. You want to be the ones that have the privilege. You want to be the ones that have all of the accessibility, but you're not going to help out the ones that you're not giving it to. Why not teach this man how to do a water sigil and put out the fire himself? Why not teach him how to do that? Wouldn't that help make things a lot easier? But you don't want to do that because then it's not exclusive. You don't want to do that because you can't trust how he's going to use that power. And that's what's so messed up about it. Like, instead of offering your service, you're just kind of like, oh, I guess I'll help him. You could teach him how to do it, but you're not allowed to do that. It's so messed up. It's so messed up. You have the power right in front of you. And it's not like the doctor, the thing I was trying to get at earlier is the doctor and the people at that hospital, they had to study medicine. They had to know what the different types are. They had to know how to use it. They had to know how to administrate it. There's a process to it. With the witches, yeah, they've got to learn how to use the paper and the ink, and they got to learn how to draw sigils. But other than that, that's stuff that anybody can study. That's stuff that anyone can learn. Not everybody can be a doctor. Not everybody can be, if my best friend wanted to be a doctor, but they have a physical disability that would not enable them to be able to give care fast enough. So they had to realize, unfortunately, at an early age, that they wouldn't have the accessibility to do that career path. And that was a hard lesson to learn. It wasn't because they weren't smart enough, it's because they physically couldn't do it. And in this case, it's kind of like the witches are sort of like, well, or in this case, Qifrey's like, well, I don't really want to help put out the fire. I'm like, you can. Like, there's no difference between Qifrey and that man except what Qifrey knows and that man has not had access to. That is the difference. It is wild. And so I kind of, on the one hand, I don't think what he did was appropriate in grabbing Qifrey, and you shouldn't act the way that he did, but he was panicked. And on the other hand, I kind of get it. You witches help people in trouble, don't you? It's kind of a superhero genre. It's kind of one of those moments, but like, if you've been given this power, how are you going to use it? And what are you going to tell the people that don't have access to that power that want to use it as well? Because it's not like, the crazy thing is that the outside world believes that these witches are all born with this innate power, like they're a superhero. But they're not. And if they were born with that power, I think I would feel more sympathetic towards the witches. If it was something they were born with and only they had access to it and the other people were not born with it, I'd kind of feel a little bit more sympathetic and go, yeah, well, they couldn't help what they were born with. There is nothing that separates that man from Qifrey except the knowledge that Qifrey's been given and that he has not been given. There's nothing biologically or physically that should disable that man from having the same ability to put out that fire as Qifrey, but the society that they have created and that they support doesn't allow them to share that knowledge with people who could use it. And that's messed up. The brimmed cap in me is like, that man should have access to magic. He should be able to put out his own fires. He shouldn't have to rely upon Qifrey. And if you taught him how to do it, then, whatever. But, and he's like, I have to stay here. And I like how Coco's like, you can leave. There are other doctors here. And I get why Qifrey wants to stay, because it's Coco and he cares about her and he doesn't want to leave her side. But I was like, that definitely shows Qifrey's priorities. And Qifrey's priorities are the people he cares about, and everybody else, good luck. Good luck on ya. Good luck on you. But it's created this very complicated world, and it's so fun to talk about because I get where Qifrey comes from in saying that you don't want to give people who would do harm to the world access to like how to make a bomb. You wouldn't want to give them that. But the problem is if those people really want to bad enough, they're probably going to find a way. And so then what do you do? And that's where things get tricky. That's where things get complicated. And that's kind of where the brimmed caps come in. So they're like, the fire was small when I left, but we better hurry. So they go back and Coco, the animation in this episode, I don't think at this point it needs to be said, but I'm going to say it anyway. The animation in this episode is gorgeous. It's so good. It's so good. But she looks so great there. And she's like, I actually am scared to be alone. So Tartah finds his way back to the hospital just in time to see them all go away. He goes in and manages to avoid the marm, the lady in charge, the charge nurse, and then finds Coco's room and then sees his hat. And then Coco starts to get a little bit sick and he's like, well, what should we do? He's like, are you okay? Your cold's gotten worse. He's like, is there a doctor or Mr. Qifrey? And that's when she explains what's happened. He's like, is there a tranquil leaf? He's like, the stuff I used before, we could use that to, take your fever and cold down. And then he finds all the bottles, but there's no labels, and he can't tell them apart. I feel for Tartah a lot because Tartah is smart, and he's physically able, and he's capable, but because of this disability, it has made it to where he struggles a lot, especially in the witching world. And I feel so badly for him because he wants to help so much. And he's like, and he brings up a good point. What if you mix them up? What if you were in I feel like Tartah does bring up a good point with the labeling. He's like, what if you were in a rush or a panic? What if you got somebody that didn't know everything? What if you X, Y, and Z? He's like, why don't they have the labels on there? He's like, how do people tell them apart just by their color? It would be hard. And he says, people assume that everyone sees the world the same way that they do. Oh, that is such a good line. And I could talk all day about ableism and stuff like this. And it's mind-blowing to me. It really is mind-blowing to me. I guess a good example of this would be my best friend and I, the trip I went on at the end of the month. If you've been following my channel and you've listened to the update, we went on a trip with the school that we both work for, and we had to fly in a plane. And my friend cannot move her legs. Her legs, she doesn't have it. Her knees are fused. She was born that way. So her legs just are like this. They do not bend. They are straight. And so when she flies in a plane, she always has to ride in the front seat because there's enough leg room in the front seat of that plane where she can fit her legs and stretch them out. And that's the only way she can fly is in the front row. That's it. No other rows will accommodate her. Not possible. So it's never been an issue, but the airline service that we used last time just changed their policies where now you have to buy your seat, which is stupid. But anyway, so on the way there, we got seats in the front row. On the way back, they were sold out, and so we got seats in the fifth row. And I told her, I was like, this is stupid. They're both extended legroom seats. They'll be fine. We're going to sit in the front row because she gets to board first because she has a disability, and I go with her to help her. And I'm like, and whoever's in the fifth row, it's just the fifth row. We'll just ask them politely if they want to switch with us. They're both extended legroom seats. They'll see that you have a disability and that you need this seat, and it's going to be okay. So the couple comes up that had the seats we were in, and the woman didn't say anything. She was fine. But the guy was like, well, these are our seats. And so we looked at him and we were like, well, and I looked at him and said, my friend has, she needs to sit here in the front seat. And she was like, yeah, I'm going to sit here. And he almost wasn't going to let us have the seat. He kind of had this look on his face, and the flight attendant had to come up and be like, they're both extended legroom seats. They're both going to be okay. But for a hot second, he was going to argue and make us go back and try to sit in those seats. And I was like, are you freaking for real? So he doesn't see the world the way that my friend does. And that's like the day-to-day reality for my friend. And he just couldn't see past his own privilege. And I'm like, it made me so mad. I was like, ugh. So I feel for Tartah in this moment because people don't see the struggles of accessibility until it happens to them. Until it happens to them, it's not a problem. And I wish more people would be considerate of that because it really is, for the people it does affect, it's a pretty big deal. And then, so we go back to Tartah's past, where they talk about silver wash. He won't be able to use complex spells with magic dyes then. He'll never make it far as a magic stationer either. So the magic stationer, I can understand why they wouldn't think he'd be good in that position because that individual has to know all those differences. And if something happened like the flash of light a few episodes ago and the bottles did get mixed up, that could cause a big problem, like a big accident if he couldn't relabel them properly. So I understand that. That's kind of like my friend realizing that she couldn't be an RN. She was like, a registered nurse because she couldn't handle like the extreme emergency situations with her mobility issues. So I get that. But the just not being able to use the complex dye, like there had to have been a way around it. And there's, again, I talked last week about the comparisons between Tartah and Agott. This is it. Like, again, Agott's was much more stylistic and abstract in how the people were portrayed, but it's the same thing. Agott getting told that she's not good enough, Tartah getting told that he's not good enough. Coco has a type. And that's literally how it is for him. They're like, it's not bad when he's a child. It's a good thing. He's good at carving pins. And I love that he kind of clams up at that because how demeaning would it be for somebody to be like, well, it's a good thing you're good at this. Otherwise you wouldn't be welcome here. But that's the exclusion of that society. They're like, if you don't fit the mold of what we deem to be a good witch, of being a worthy witch, then you can't be a part. You can't sit with us. If you can't adhere to the mold that we've created, then you can't sit with us and you can't be part of it. There are things that some people can't do. I feel like in some ways you have Tartah where he connects to Coco in the sense of that desire to be beyond normal. Like he desires like Coco to be beyond normal. He wants to use magic like Coco wants to use magic. They both have that desire to transcend beyond just being a person in society as it stands. But then he's also like Agott in the sense that he has this family that are well established within the witching world, but both Tartah and Agott are not measuring up to what those family standards are. So I like that Tartah connects to both Coco and Agott. They're both featured. They're all three featured in the OP, and I think it fits because they all three kind of connect with one another. It's funny. It kind of forms a love triangle, but not really. There are some things that people just can't do. So stick with the things you can do. Now, I don't think that is a terrible piece of advice because Tartah ends up using it later to help him, but it does suck in the moment because he's like, I want to be able, he doesn't see what he can do in that moment. He's like, the components in magic dyes are often used in medicine. He's like, if I knew what was what, I'd know just what they could do. But in this world where everything is silver, he's like, I feel helpless and powerless. And so in this moment, he's like, I'll go get you some water. Now, he is able to use the vapor bubble that his grandfather gave him. I don't know how that works. So he's able to use magic equipment. I guess that part wouldn't be illegal because he's not casting spells. He's just using the equipment that already has spells upon it. That seems legit. That seems fair. I could understand that. He's like, Grandpa's always using this one when he makes ink. So I do think it's smart that he takes all the medicines out and like extracts the water. I'm surprised that the nurse didn't question what happened to all the medicines. I'm surprised she didn't question that, but I guess maybe she just thought he dumped all the water out. That's interesting. He's like, I just need something that turns into a leaf to make the powder. And so Tartah's so smart. I love this. where he's like, that leaves, and he narrows it down to 3. I mean, that's such a smart plan. I was like, damn, he's doing so well. He's like cranking him out and knocking him back and narrowing it down, and he gets down to 3. And he's like, what am I gonna do? And I love I'm a sucker for some visual symbolism. I'm a sucker for it. And the witch's hat in the darkness, and then as he slowly like works with Coco to use the spell, it like gets illuminated. Oh, it's so good. It's so good. So yeah, he's like, I try my best, but it's beyond me. And he's like, I don't know how I got my hopes up. He's like, I knew I couldn't do it. And I love Coco connects with him in that moment because he feels like everything's hopeless. And she's like, if you want to do something that you can't do otherwise, that's where magic comes in. These two, stop. These two are so good. So the idea of magic filling in the gaps. This entire scene is so beautifully done. And he's like, I have this pen I've been carving. And she gets the ink. Now, granted, luckily it's the ink bottle that Tartah brought with him, not the one from the Masked Witch. And she draws this spell, but she doesn't get it quite right. And I'm sorry, him pulling the blanket over her, swoon. So, will it make you feel better? She's like, it's not just for me. It's gonna help us both. And that's where Coco is. Coco is not just making a spell for herself. It's also a spell to help others. I think that's Coco is so selfless. I love her. And I love that she's thinking of other people too. Of how here's the thing. Coco's whole deal is using magic to help those that feel helpless. I wonder why the brimmed caps, specifically the Masked Witch, considers her a hope to them. I don't know. Do I feel like the Masked Witch is a little bit villainous? Well, yes, they were, using knives and putting blood and ink and, crushing up and using lightning and crushing bottles and getting their hands all bloody. Sure, they're meant to be illustrated that way. But the whole thing with the Masked Witch is that he sees her as a hope to the world because she's an outsider that's using magic to help other outsiders. Because Tartah, for all intents and purposes in this episode, is an outsider. He's in the witch circle, but he's not a part of it. So, the Masked Witch would probably shed a tear if they could watch Coco do this, because this is exactly what they want. They want magic to be accessible, seemingly. I'm just basing this off my assumptions of what we've seen in the series so far. They want magic to be accessible to everyone. And Coco is literally doing that in this episode. Now, she explains the Sigil of Earth. She's like, this spell that's helped me a lot that I've been using, what if I change the signs? What if I inverse them? She figures out if I inverse the signs, then I might be able to inverse the signs to save her mom. Ooh, that's juicy. Ooh, that's juicy. Oh, it's saucy. I love it. I love it. I love it. I mean, by all intents and purposes, we've seen the mini version of it. It does seem to work that way. Okay. That's so juicy and dangerous. I don't know, girl. I like the continuity that because she's practiced this spell so much, she knows it. And so she's able to he's like a spell to turn powdered things solid again. It's great. And I love that because he practices with balancing and getting things just right, he's able to make the spell look as good. Like, he drew a spell. You both did some illegal things this episode. If Easties found out, he'd be like flipping tables and upending things and lighting the bar back on fire. Like, no. You can use this to find your answer. That in the silver, so good. So good. It's beautiful. I love it. She's like, it doesn't quite work. And she's like, it's all wobbly and uneven. I love when she's here being like, but you could draw it. I'm like, girl, you're enabling. You are enabling Tartah to use magic when he's not licensed to. Yeah, I love the callback. That callback where it shows him with the wand. Oh, it's so good. It's so good. Oh, that might... There's a lot of shots. Tartah's got to be on the thumbnail. There were a lot of good shots with him. Quite a bit. Quite a bit. So, yeah. So, he works on the pin to make it look perfect. I mean, doing just like 8 kinds of illegal things in this episode. But it's all for the greater good. And then he makes it work. I love that she helped him create his own spell. Like, that's his own spell. And the thing about it is, it's about making that magic accessible. That's the whole deal. She's like, magic fills in the gaps and helps us to do things when we don't think that we can do them. Like, this spell would be perfect for him. Because he's smart enough to know the differences. He's got the ability and the intelligence to know what things are. He just needs help identifying. So the idea that she makes this magical spell to help him identify is so good. It's so clever. It's so useful. But in the witch society, no. Why would we need a spell that does that? We can't make things accessible. Then everybody could use it. We don't want that. I love this moment where the tranquil leaf shows up and it shows up right in front of him. Like, that moment is good, but that might be the thumbnail. That's so awesome. I love that shot. Where he gets to use magic. Because why not? Why shouldn't Tartah be able to? And he's like, none of these. I was sure it was going to be one of them. I got really nervous when he went to the storage room because I was like, what if somebody is still here? Or what if they catch him? Because again, the outsiders, the people that are not witches, do not know about the fact that their whole magic is just drawing pictures and making them work. They don't know that. So if he got caught and they were like, what's that in your hand? And he just lights it on fire, he just throws it in the candle, that would be one thing. But luckily he manages to pull it off without getting caught. But I was for sure he was going to get found. I was like, oh my gosh. This feels like it's from the OP, where him and Agott and Coco are standing there behind all of these. It's like at the apothecary. Man, him and Mau Mau would get along great. But yeah, he's like, this is just how they were in the books. When I hold the seal up to things, this world comes into focus. Everything I've learned is showing me the answer. And I like that too, that the magic itself is not the solution. It's just an aid. That's the thing. It is just an aid. It's not a cure-all, right? It's not the cure. It's just a medicine. I mean, that's maybe not the best analogy because sometimes medicines are the cure. But the point is, it's not that that spell solved all of his problems. It just helped him to use the knowledge that he did have to be able to get through a situation where he wasn't fully able to access the things that he needed to. Oh, he's like, I found it. This is the tranquil leaf. And that's when the marm shows up and she's like, we would never leave the hospital abandoned. Good call. I was like, that would have been weird if they had. And she's like, the reason that the medicine isn't labeled is so that people can't fiddle with them. That's a level of distrust that is very akin to the witch society. So some things did transfer over between them. But she's honestly pretty forgiving. She's like, I know you want to help your friend, but, medicine could be poison, so you need the proper knowledge and all that. So she comes from a place of good where she's not mad at Tartah. She's just kind of like, hey, you can't just give her whatever. And, though in this case you were correct with the tranquil leaf. And she's like, do you know much about medicines? Do you want to become a doctor? And she's like, oh, you're a witch's apprentice. And for the first time, I love the way Coco looks at him like, you are. And for the first time, he's kind of like, I guess I am. I just love that Coco and Tartah, they gave each other hope. Like, Coco gave Tartah hope that he could be something he didn't think he had any possibility of being. And so then Tartah, we'll get to him in a second, he gives Coco this hope that he's going to help her get better too. Love it. So anyway, they finally get the building, the fire put out and got everybody that was injured out. And honestly, considering my boss, her husband is like a chief of the fire department. Yeah, fires do take a while to put out and they do take a while to help people. So that was not wrong. I like the purple robes. And Qifrey, of course, is like, okay, I did my part. I got to go back to my apprentice. And this guy's like, well, we still need to clean up the site. Now, this guy, to be fair, this guy is a little bit condescending. And he's like, witches can go presto changeo and have it done in a flash, right? It's definitely more complicated than that. But, I mean, he probably wouldn't think that if you all would, explain the system to him. But you won't, so what do you expect? And I do like this witch couple. I like them, the master and apprentice. They're kind of snobby, though. These two witches are snobby. Because he's like, I need you leading the work. And Qifrey's like, well, it's not really that easy. And they're like, well, outsiders don't understand. And it's like, well, that's kind of your own fault that they don't understand. It's kind of like when you work somewhere and there's a bunch of processes of how things get done. You have to communicate those processes to people so that they understand the work that has to go into them. Otherwise, they won't understand and they can get misinformation and things like that. If you don't explain how it works, you can't be mad when those people don't understand. You can't be mad. If you don't communicate, how can you be mad that they don't get it, Luckily, the snobby witches are like, we got this. And they let Qifrey go back. And he's like, yes, it's not easy or simple. Not a bit. I want to know what's up here. What's up at the top of that tower? Because they kept going back to the top of that tower, and I don't know what's up there. But Qifrey, the show's making a big deal out of it. For a hot second, I thought it was where Coco was, but then I'm like, no, that's on the island with the witches. So I don't know what's up there at the top of the lighthouse, but something's there, and it's made a big deal. If it were, we wouldn't have to worry or suffer as we do. Yeah. And I do respect the fact that, the witch society, someone had noted that they kind of have these self-imposed shackles on everything. And it is very complicated because, the rules have been designed to overall keep people safe. However, it is far from perfect. And I do get the vibe, the more we get into the series, that the people who fully understand the nuance of the witch society and all that was lost to gain what they've gained and all of the consequences and all of the things, I feel like the people that understand all that are kind of few and far between. I think some of the witches are a little bit disillusioned or have kind of gotten complicit with the way the system is, and they just don't care about anybody else on the outside because why? It doesn't affect us. And the brimmed caps are like, you should care. So, anyway, this is adorable. This little moment with Tartah and Coco, I ship them so hard. His robes are even green. The color scheme, it works so well, It's super cute. And yeah. Again, we go back to that lighthouse. I don't know why we go back to it. Tying back to it, it feels almost ominous. Why are we tying back to that? So yeah, I guess the medicine worked. He's like, well, you were the one who helped me. I love he's blushing like Tartah. Tartah is swooning. Coco is swooning. I am swooning. We all are swooning. It's super adorable. Come on now. Look, I'm telling you, I'm not done shipping Agott and Coco. I respect that ship a lot. But, I mean, the vision's right in front of me. I can't help but see the vision. I'm on the boat. I'm getting on this ferry towards the Coco and Tartah ship quite rapidly. So the grandpa's like, thanks for letting me know, Qifrey. I like the guard kind of hides behind the wall. I'm sure Qifrey threatened him. I'm sure he did. He's like, I'm sure you do the same for me. Again, the fact that Qifrey, it's nothing. If it was me and I was confronting Null Noah, I would feel guilty every time I saw him. I'd be like, I'd be really nervous about him forgetting it all. Qifrey just brushes it off. It's just, a typical Wednesday. Crazy talk. But yeah. And so he's like, I wanted to ask about the flash that I saw. And yeah, and, to be fair to be fair in this moment, is there a chance that Qifrey forgot about the fact that the ink he used made the flash a light? Sure. Sure. You could say that. Do I believe that he forgot? No, not at all. I think that he just played it off because he doesn't want any questions asked and he wants Tartah to forget about it. Yeah, the fact that he's like, maybe I imagined it. I'll have to look into that powerful light on my own. No, don't do that, Tartah. This is the problem because Qifrey believes he can contain everything. Qifrey believes he's on top of it. He's got everything under control. He can contain all the problems. He's like, we don't have to worry about anything because I've got it under control. But the problem is there are variables that you can't control. Tartah is a variable you can't control because that kid's like, well, I might look into this. What if he looks somewhere he's not supposed to and then people start asking questions? What if things just start to ripple out and you can't contain it? Qifrey, it's a problem. Yeah, and whenever Qifrey was sitting there looking at him from behind and you couldn't see what his eyes looked like, I don't like that. I don't like that expression at all. I was like, I kept thinking at some point we were going to flash like the scene in episode 5 where Qifrey's like, not a soul. Like I kept thinking we were going to flash back to one of those moments. Personally not a fan. So yeah, but he's not going to do it in front of Coco. This is cool. The idea that you complete the circle with the thing on the boat. That's pretty cool. Love that. And then Coco's like, see you later. Like, I don't trust Qifrey with his eyes like that, but Coco's super cute there. Coco, you'd fit right in with their color scheme. See? Girl. He is smitten. That boy, she has won him over. She has won him over so hard. I'm a fan. And then he's like, we should head home too. And right, like, this is peak romance. This is peak romance. Where he's like, I'm going to make a pin for you. He's going to make her a pin. That is like, and deliver it to you, I promise. That is the fantasy equivalency of the 90s when it's like, I'm going to make you a mixed cassette tape. That is date material right there. That is I'm asking you out material. That is, I freaking love it. And then her running to the edge of the dock. And then yelling back, I can't wait to see it. Shut up. Ghibli levels of romance. I am sold, swooning. And it's like, she's amazing. Oh, and I bet she'll become more amazing. Oh, well. Define amazing. Like amazing famously or infamously? Girl, oh man. There's so many directions this show could go. And then I love the grandpa says, you'll be amazing too. Protect Nol Noah at all costs. Nothing can happen to Nol Noah. Nothing can happen to Nol Noah. Nothing is allowed to happen. Maybe we should thank Qifrey for erasing his memory so nothing can happen to him. Maybe we should do that. Oh my God. Oh, it's so freaking good. So we did not get, did we get... Yeah, so we didn't really get an ED either. Look at that face! Look at him! He's so happy. Like, today was Tartah's best day. He gained a magic ability. He gained a potential girlfriend down the road. He's got a new ray of hope. Like, today is Tartah's day. Tartah's day has been made. And then on the way home, Qifrey asks her about the nightmares. And he's like, dreams are difficult to deal with. Because I'm sure that Qifrey's had nightmares as well. I'm sure that he's had the same thing happen, and so he knows what she's going through. And he's like, and he says, we can't use magic to help you sleep. That's forbidden because it's affecting your body. But we could try, he's like, I cohabitate with a social worker. We'll ask him and figure it out. He's like, I could try to help you. And then she's like, well, thank you. But she's like, I don't think I'm going to be having nightmares for a while because Tartah's giving me a ray of hope. We'll see about that. I don't think this show is going to let this girl off the hook anytime soon. But yeah, but the ray of hope is not only Tartah for agreeing to make her the wand, but also the ray of hope is that she's figured out once I find the book, if I invert the symbols on that spell, I could save my mom. Oh, dangerous, dangerous, dangerous. Forbidden spells must be the same way. Well, and almost what's interesting is this shot here where it looks like a little cross and there's Coco sitting on it. Ooh. The shot of her there, I thought of like three things at once. One, the shot of this almost looks like a scale, like where you have the scales of justice and Coco's like on the one end that's being balanced. I thought of that. I thought of the fact that Qifrey is in the middle of that scale, like he's like true neutral, true neutral. Maybe not. Don't tell me what you think his association is, if it's evil neutral or lawful neutral or whatever. We'll find out later. But the thing I just realized, the way she's sitting on the edge of that kind of looks like the way the masked witch sits on the edge of the stone. I don't want the masked witch to be her dad, but I'm getting more and more vibes that they could be. That they could be. I don't know. That they could be. Again, I don't want to assume the gender of the masked witch because they seem very androgynous. They seem very non-binary. I will make note that when I listened to the dub for episode 9, when the masked witch was like yelling out when they were crushing the stones, it does sound like a AFAM voice, but we'll see. Or AMAB seemed like that, but I don't know. We'll see. So then, speaking of the masked witch, I like Orugio's just like, well, it's a good time you got back. I've been watching these kids this whole time. Before we get to the masked witch, of course, Rich and Tetia come and greet her, and Orugio's like, well, glad she's fine. But this is kind of the biggest difference for me, is that even though Tartah and Agott have a lot in common, there is a very big difference between them. And that is Agott does not know how to handle her feelings towards Coco. Whether it's friendly feelings or beyond that, she doesn't know what to do with those feelings because her support system, even though her and Tartah have similarities, her support system is not seemingly, it's basically just Qifrey and Orugio and there right now. So she doesn't know how to handle her emotions towards Coco, so the most she can think to do is keep her distance. Whereas Tartah is the opposite and gets like into close proximity. Tartah's like all up in Coco's face, like immediately there to help, like they're seeking her out, running towards her, and Agott kind of pushes herself away. So there's a pretty big difference there, right? There's a bit of difference there. But I think Agott will get around to it. I think Agott will get there with Coco. It's just going to take a while. Tartah's already there. Tartah's like done. But I think Agott will get there. It's taking a little time, but she's coming around. Meanwhile, we have the masked witch. And the masked witch, what was that in their hands? Was it okay? So they have two new ones, right? It seems your gift didn't work out very well. Can we talk about the drip? Oh my God. And I think at first when they said I am the embodiment of forbidden magic, at first I was like, is this an item that's gained sentience? No, it's a freaking invisible witch. It's an invisible witch. They've made their body invisible. They've augmented their body and put an invisible spell somewhere on there and cast it like a tattoo, and they wear the clothes, but they're an invisible witch. That's so freaking cool! How are they not freezing their witch tits off? I don't know, but that's so freaking cool. I live. The cloak, the hat, the dripped, the brim caps are so stylish. And they're like, the pointed caps aren't all fools, gone soft from the days of peace. No, Qifrey is not made like the rest of them, that's for sure. So like, well, we can't sit idly by. We have to take further action. And that's when the thing is, what's interesting is the masked witch, I don't know if they want to involve the brimmed caps, the rest of them. I get the impression that the masked witch wants to do all of this kind of on their own, kind of like Qifrey. They want to do this all on their own and not involve the other brimmed caps, because I'm sure the brimmed caps have their own. I don't know. It would be kind of ironic if the brimmed caps had their own rules, since they're kind of like, against all of that. But it'd be funny if they did. But I think the masked witch just doesn't really want to involve the other brimmed caps because they're like, let me get Coco over to our side on my own and not involve everybody else yet. Let's not get the cart before the horse. But this brimmed capped witch seems like they're going to go next. Like, well, if you couldn't do it, masked witch, now it's my turn. I'm going to try to get involved. And so they're like, as an embodiment of forbidden magic. I love it! Ah! You must be cold. You must be cold. Must be cold, sir. And the hat opening up at the top. Hell yeah. I love it. I certainly intend to. That's terrifying. That's terrifying. How's that work? How does that work? Maybe they have to, I mean, can they ditch the robes and still be invisible? Is it like cast upon their body, or how does that work? I love the concept of an invisible man witch or an invisible witch. That's so freaking cool. So cool. I love it. But they basically say that when an apprentice leaves their master's protection during a test, the invisible witch is like, I'm going to wait till these two guys are making out, and then I'm going to make my move. Wouldn't have to wait long. During a test. Yep. And when the apprentice leaves, that's when we must strike. What's interesting is the word strike, like basically being like, okay, the apprentice is going to be away from their masters when they take the test. And that's when we strike. So it's like, is that strike going to be violent? Is it going to be for recruitment? Is it going to be to pry for information? Is it going to be to like put a tracker on them? There's lots of different options, which basically means that Agott is going to get targeted. Agott's going to get targeted in this next couple of episodes because we know that Qifrey has given Agott permission to take the test, the second test. So, do I think that we're going to have Agott taking the second test before the end of the season? Do I think that that invisible witch is going to strike by the end of this season? Am I really freaking excited to see what that's going to look like? Yeah! So we've got basically 2 more episodes left, and shit's gonna hit the fan. Shit is gonna hit the fan. The thing that makes me so like, is that I actually have like an actual vacation coming up where I'm gonna be out away from my computer for like a solid week. It's like the first time that's happened in years. So I'm pretty excited. Like I've gone on like 5-day trips and I've gone on work trips that have been a week long, but like a actual vacation. Like last year I went on one that was like 4 days and I was like, this was a great 4-day vacation. This day it's like a solid 6-day vacation. I'm like, oh, we're getting out doing things. So the sad thing is I'm going to be able to check the comments for episodes 8 and 9 but watch episode 11 before I go. But then I'm going to have to wait a week to watch the finale. No! Oh my god. That's gonna be fun. So, I might try to do the first chapter of Witch Hat Atelier Kitchen before I get to episode 12 as well, because I did buy the first volume, so I could do chapter 1. I might do that and see how long those reactions are going to be. That'll give me kind of a gauge of what I want to do in future months when we do Witch Hat Atelier Kitchen as well. If I want to do like 2 chapters a month or, 1 chapter a month or whatever my schedule looks like, we might go from there. So hopefully you all think that's a great idea. This shot here of Agott, Coco's being like, I'll help, make things better, Agott. And Agott's like, will you? Oh man, I am so excited for next week. It's going to be so much fun and I can't wait, but I've talked for too long. I'm excited to hear your thoughts down below. I hope you all have a wonderful week. Please stay safe, take care, and it's gonna be a good one. I can't wait to see you all and talk more about Witch Hat Atelier, the penultimate episode. Oh, my heart. And I'll see you there next week with it. Bye.